Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to change a pressure conversion switch on a Campbell Hausfeld, an old compressor of mine. And I think a lot of people have these compressors, they just don't know really how to repair them. If you've got one that just doesn't shut off, it's constantly pissing air or just constantly running and then it shuts off completely, that's probably your problem. So you can buy these kits on Amazon really cheap and you don't have to take it in. Anybody could really do it if you just kind of look at it, try to find something that's the most similar to what you have. I looked around for videos on this one and you really can't see a lot. Yeah, I can't find a lot on the internet for it. I'm going to show you how to do that today. I've already disassembled it. Today we're just putting it back together. What I have here is the older switch. I've already disassembled it because usually whenever you buy it, you're only buying the switch only, which is this. I'm getting the switch only. This one here, you know, you kind of look at it, like I said, you're trying to find something very similar to it. So this has got three little, this goes into the tank, one goes to your airline, one's a pressure gauge, and one's the relief valve. And then you have the smaller little hole, and then that's basically what you're doing. So this is the old one. So you see, you're just trying to find something that looks very, very similar to it, and always check to make sure that it can handle the PSIs for your compressor. This is, like I said, this is an older compressor, so it has 125 max on it, and that's how I knew which one to purchase whenever I was looking. So just an old tank. You know, the thing is that this has been a great tank. If you always drain the water out of them after you use them, what I mean by that is just open them up. There's like the valve underneath there. You just, because it condensates and you get in there, and then what happens to a lot of these compressors is they rust out because people don't drain them. So anytime you use them, I always release them, let all the air out of them, and leave the valve open, and it'll last you a really long time. I've probably had this one for probably almost, I would say almost 30 years now. So first, I'm going to put this piece back into the tank. Put a little bit of Teflon tape on it, and let's screw it back in. It can sometimes be really hard to get started, so start them very, very slow. And do the same thing with the next one. Onto this piece, but we'll see how this works out. That might be where it stops. See if I can go around one more time with it. I need to go around. Got to be careful not to over tighten some of this stuff. So from here on, it's really pretty simple. You just kind of follow what you had on the old one. So just follow the steps. You know, you're going to have the different gauges. You can see where this is. I got to get this back on here, a little pressure relief there, and then the hose will hook onto the other location. So one thing I wanted to point out, if you do have any older pieces, like this has been on here for a long time, there's some rust in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just replace that piece as well, just to keep everything nice and tidy. So here's just a newer piece. These are actually, you can buy them sometimes with the thread dope already on them. One thing you need to be careful about is over tightening. You know, there's a lot of these plastic pieces, and so you got to be careful not to over tighten it or thread it out. So, or strip it. Now I'll just go ahead and put this back on. Around and around we go. If you can see my other dog over there, you've seen Dakota in plenty of these videos. The reason why you haven't seen my other dog in the background, Denver, is because she's a young pup. Although she's a lot bigger than my other one, this one has a tendency to roam off, and she gets way too far away from the ranch house. So she's having to learn to stay close by, so she's over there having a stick party. Okay, so now working through the pieces. Now on to the next one. This gauge. We'll go from, so we're just kind of replacing part by part, right? So one thing I would suggest is to take off the old pipe threading, the threading tape. So you're just going to get a much better seal. So take all that off. It's a little bit tedious sometimes, but it's best to take it all off. There you go. So I've got most of the tape off. And then I just took a simple little wire brass butt brush and just kind of cleaned off the threads a little bit. And then if you have any rust in there, sometimes it's good to get it out. So I use an old battery terminal cleaner. Just take that off and then tilt it upside down and just kind of turn it around in there. Be careful, you want to make sure that you do it this direction and not down. And the reason why I say that, there's a little air hole in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you don't want to get stuck down in there. Okay, now the next piece. It's important that you'll want to be able to read that. Boy. Now that is on there. Okay, now the next piece. Wow, that one was a burger to get off there. But now just go ahead and clean this again and put more tape on it. Okay, now put this one on. This one seems a little bit more tricky to get on for some reason. It's hard to get off, and it's hard to get back on too. Okay, and then there's one last one. I got to put this gauge back on here. I'm going to clean it up again, put that one on. This is so I can see how much PSI is coming through going into the tool I'm using. Let me show you a little trick that when you're using tape, you always want to go with the threads, and because this stuff gets sticky really easy. So I usually just start it at one spot and hold on to it, and then just so it threads evenly, I then hold it and then I get it to wrap at least once, like so. That way it stays tight. You only have to go a couple times around. Depends on how thick of the tape that you're using. So now we'll just go ahead and put this on here. Now we're going into this, and it's plastic. So again, you want it to be tight. And if you're big and strong and you like to oversize or just over torque things, you need to be careful. What you think is tight and what that plastic thinks is tight might be two different things. So you need to take it easy on it. You can always tighten it later if you hear a leak. As I was saying, I don't want to over tighten this. But I feel like you can sometimes tell if you feel like you can go around again or not. I think I can go around one more time with this one. I know, Denver. See, if you stuck around, you wouldn't have to be tied down like that. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. And the last thing I have to do is now I have to put this tube that came off back into this area here. So this thing moves back and forth here. So you can kind of put it where you need it, and it's going to go in here. It's going to replace that little blue cap that's going to come off, and it's going to be a pressure fitting that goes through there. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you, I was showing you that other one was a pressure relief valve. This is a condor valve here. I believe that's what it's called. But this is, you cut the plastic and the nut and everything off of it and cut it clean here. So I cut it off, and then it's just a tube, and you push it in this blue valve, and it's just like a pressure fitting. So once it goes in, it's not coming out. So you want to make sure you do this last step, because if you don't, you're going to be in really a lot of shape trying to turn this thing, or you're going to end up having to do it all over again. So the last thing we have to do now is just wire up the old power going into the motor, and then the power coming in as well. So should have both of those. So it's pretty simple the way it all ground goes all back together exactly the way it came. This one comes with two different types of wire brackets that kind of hold the hose on. One's larger, so that's my input coming from power, and that's going into the motor. And then they send another one with this one where they're both the same size. You only need one of them. It just depends on what kind of compressor you're using. But mine, I have a larger cable coming in from power from the outside, and then a smaller one going to the actual motor itself. So I'm going to be using this one. So this got a little tricky. This didn't want to thread correctly, so really hard to screw it in. I didn't want to strip it out, so you can hook up a little nut here. So I just got this out, and I was going to get this back in position where I needed it before I tighten it all up here. There we go. Again, like I was saying, this is the main power coming in, and then this is going to the motor. So basically you'll do power coming in on the top, and here and here, and then this will go to the motor, the one down below. Here you got your neutrals and your hots. So again, main power coming in, this is going to the motor, power in, neutral coming from the main power. Okay, now just put the cover on top, screw it down. Pretty easy, see how that works. Snap straight on, tighten the screw, and then we'll give it a shot, see how it works. All right. The moment of truth. We got power. Gauge might be off a little bit because it really shut off about 130-ish or so. So yeah, because this is only showing 120 over here. If I can do it, anybody could do it. So that was it'd probably take 10, 15 minutes. Now I have another compressor. Compressors are expensive these days. So that should last me another 30 years. We'll see.